welcome to my craft room. Today I wanted to share with you a nice little card layout, very simple layout that I've been using to make some cards. And in order to make these very simple, I've been using some of my scraps. So I have a very simple measurements for you. Okay, the first thing we need to do is have a piece of regular computer paper, copy paper, and we're going to cut that down to 4 by 5. So we're going to use this as a guide. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go grab my scrap box. This is all my solid colors. And I'll just figure out what color I want to use for this card. But I think I'm going to start with the bottom piece, and I'm going to want to use a pattern piece. So let's see, I'm going to pick some pretty paper. And this is what I came up with. Okay, so this is what we're going to use for the bottom. And we're going to cut this piece to be 2 3/8 by about maybe 5. We just want the width, make sure the width is 2 3/8. And so that's going to go along the bottom there. I'm just going to line it up with the bottom piece of the copy paper. It was a little bit too wide, so we're going to cut it down a bit. So I just want to line it up with the bottom so I know the bottom is straight. Okay, so the next piece is going to be the top half. And for that, I'm going to look for a solid piece of cardstock, but the piece I've decided to use is actually a piece that was already embossed. So I'm going to just cut that one down to size, and that one is going to also be about maybe 5 inches wide, and let's see, 2 3/8 again. So 2 3/8 by 5. Maybe 4 1/2. I just don't need it to go over the width of the paper there. Okay, so next I needed to I found this little piece. I'm going to make the strips, the center strip piece. And those are just 1/4 inch wide. So I'm going to cut a few strips at once here. And when I make the centerpiece, I'm actually going to glue 2 of the strips together to give the center piece just a little bit more dimension. So we're going to do that. And these are the pieces I'm going to need for my front panel. So there you go. So this can be made, like I said, with any kind of scrap pieces that you have. But it's a nice, simple little layout that can be used to make a card for any occasions, actually. Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to glue those together and place them on the center. I'm going to glue another set together. This is going to be for another layer of the card in the back. But we'll just go ahead and we'll glue those together now, so they will be ready. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is just go ahead and tape the back of the pretty cardstock. And Ryan, oh, nope, I thought it paused. Okay, now what happened was no, it's just I made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake. My tape runner ran out. Oh, yeah. You can do it. Just snap it in there. Yep. Okay. Yep. There we go. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to glue the back of this printed piece here. And I'm not even going to glue it. I'm going to actually tape it. Okay. And I'm going to... Oh, I had 2 pieces. How nice. Okay. I'm just going to line this up on the bottom. Make sure it's nice and even. That way I know it's straight. Okay. And now I'm just going to go ahead. This piece I'll use glue because it's way too narrow to try to use a tape runner. I'm going to line that bottom up bottom of the strip with the top of the printed cardstock. Okay, now I'm going to get the top piece, which is the embossed piece, and we're going to tape that up, and we're going to line that up right there, press it against the, okay, the center strip like that. There we go. Okay, and you can see right there that's going to be the front panel, and it's a nice little size, but I want to cut it to the correct size for an A2 card. And the way that I like to do that is to use the Gina K Master Layout 2. It has the 2 die in there for the A2 size card, and the front panel has a stitch die, so that makes it look very nice. So I'm going to go ahead and use that and cut it out with the die cut machine. Okay, so here we go, all done. We just cut that out on the die cut machine. There we go, peel away. And now you can see why we needed to have that piece of copy paper in the back. It held everything in place. And now we'll just take it out of our die. It's a little bit thicker because it has the extra little layer there. So we'll just pull it away from the die. And that'll have the nice stitching detail on it. That's so cute. I just love that. Look, isn't that so cute? All of them. I'm just really happy with how they turned out. And you can really use, you know, very small pieces of scrap paper that you have left, which is probably not good because that's just all the more reason to hang on to even more paper. Okay, so now I need to find the layer behind this. I guess you could call it the shadow layer. Again, I'm using the Gina K Master Layouts 2, and I'm going to cut the shadow layer behind. And here I go. Okay, so we have that all cut out. And this is going to be our second shadow layer. And put that behind that. And this just leaves about 1/8 of an inch reveal behind the front panel. Just a nice little detail. But because I believe more is more, I like to have a third panel in the back, so I have those two together. Yeah, I like that third one right there. Okay, so we have our front and back pieces, but I want to go ahead and add the third piece for the third panel. And I found a nice piece of embossed cardstock, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. And yep, that looks good. So this piece I'm going to cut to 4 by 5 1/4. Just make sure the edges are nice and clean. So we will be able to use this scrap up. And just trying to line up. Sometimes when you have pieces that are embossed, the edges aren't quite the same, so I just trying to make sure the edges are kind of looking similar. Okay, so there we go. We're going to go ahead and use this for the third panel for the back. And we're going to go ahead and take our second strip that we made, and that is going to line up with the strip on the very front panel. And the way I line that up is I'm just going to eyeball it, but then I will go ahead and use a pencil just to kind of make sure where it needs to be glued. Yep, that's going to match up nice. Okay, so before I layer on that piece of strip, I'm going to go ahead and thicken the two front panels up. Now, oftentimes people like to use foam tape, which is also works very nice when you're trying to make the cardstock a little thicker, give a little bit more dimension. But because I do have a lot of scrap pieces, I like to just go ahead and cut up the scrap pieces and kind of stack them together and use those to add some dimension to the panel. And so this is instead of using any kind of foam tape. Nothing wrong with foam tape. I just prefer to use up my scraps whenever I can. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut these sheets. I believe I'm going to use like 3 sheets, and they're going to all be the same size as my front panel, which is 3.5 by 4 3/4 for this very front piece. Yep, I'm just going to have those all together. And now for the second panel, this second panel is going to be 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. So now I'm just going to use some of my scraps, and I'll cut 3 pieces out of some of my white cardstock scrap. And again, it's just another way to use up your scraps, and that way you're not going to waste. Okay, so there's one, and I'll just cut a couple more. I'm being very precise. Okay, there we go. Let's get going. Okay, and that's the second one, and we'll do a third one. And as I said, this is just, instead of using foam tape, some people like to use foam tape just to lift up the paper a little bit, the cardstock, give it a little bit more dimension, but I prefer to use just extra cardstock whenever I can. It's certainly at least less expensive, but there, see, I have a lot less waste, although to be honest, I'm probably going to save some of those strips because I feel like I could probably use them for something. Okay, so now that I have my extra little pieces, I'm just going to go ahead and glue them all together. And we can actually, there we go, okay. So I'm just going to add these together just to thicken up each piece. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just lay that on there. And again, this is just to make the panel a little bit thicker, give it a little more dimension. It's, one, it's not necessary. And 2, it can be done with foam tape. But I just like to do this little extra detail on my cards, just because I think it helps them to just kind of stand out a little bit. Okay, so right here, what happened was I'm taking it off because I can see there's a little bit of white showing over the edge, or under the edge, I suppose. And I didn't want to take the whole thing off, so I'm just going to trim off some of that excess. I just want to make sure you can't see it on the green cardstock. Okay, so we'll just get rid of that. Okay. And so we have the one piece, and we're going to do the same thing over here. We're just going to glue all of these pieces together. And these are all just different different weight cardstock. But altogether they'll make a nice thick panel. Okay, so we have the 2 panels, and I've added the extra cardstock behind each panel, so they're a little bit thicker rather than just one piece of cardstock. So now I'll just go ahead and join those together. And I'm just going to eyeball this, but the panels are so nicely cut. It's pretty easy to make sure they get a good fit every time. Okay, there we go. And now we're going to take these panels that are together, and we're going to attach them to the back layer. And this is where I want it to, I'm just going to mark where the strip needs to go on that 3rd panel in the back. So I'm just going to line up where it's supposed to be, and then I'm just going to make a little mark here with my pencil. There you go. And then I'll know where to put it. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll just be gluing it because the tape is a little bit too thick, too wide. I'm sorry. Okay, so we'll just lay this down, and I'm going to just use those little pencil marks I had. Okay. Okay, and now we can go ahead, when we lay the top piece on top, the front strip is going to line up nicely with that back strip. And again, this is just a way that I thought was a good way to use up a lot of my scrap pieces. Because oftentimes I have a lot of very small pieces of scrap paper, but it's so pretty I hate to not use it for something. So this is just a simple layout that can make a nice card. Okay. I just want to make sure it's all lined up. There we go. There's a little bit more reveal between the back layer and this second and first layer. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and fold over these edges. I can cut them off, whichever. I just think I like the look of the paper when it's folded over rather than just having a raw edge. So I'm just gonna hold that in place, and then we're done. We have a beautiful panel for the front. You can see it has a lot of dimension because of the extra cardstock that I added to it. And now we just need to get a card base, a standard A2 size card base. And I like to use 110 pound cardstock for my card base. So again with the tape, I need to maybe buy some stock in Gina K tape. Oh, okay, so I did go ahead and use some glue. So that's, yeah, this is not going to come apart. Okay. And now we'll just line this up on the front of the card base. I'm trying to use my line guides on my ruler there. Okay, and there we go. And we're going to make sure it's all centered, and we have the even reveal along each side. And there we go. This is our final card, and I think it turned out lovely. And we can just put whatever sentiment we like on the top. And I think what I'm going to go ahead and do, since I have a little bit of pink, I'm just going to go ahead and cut a few strips of this same pink cardstock. And I'm just going to use them to put a little bit of decoration on the inside. Sometimes I like to do that just to make the inside a little bit more interesting. So I think I'll just go ahead and maybe put a couple little diagonal lines just to add a little bit of interest. A lot of times I will go ahead and stamp a sentiment inside, but today when I'm making these, I don't really have a particular occasion in mind for each card. I might just leave the front blank until I need to use the card, but I'm not actually going to be stamping any sentiments inside the card. But just to make it a little bit more interesting, I'll just go ahead and put these inside just to make it a little nice. And so we'll just trim away the excess pieces there. Okay, and there you go. And then once we stamp the center, it'll just gives it, inside the center of the card, it'll just give the card a little bit more interest. There you go, and there's our finished card. I think it looks quite lovely. So if you are going to go ahead and add a sentiment, oftentimes I have these cut out ahead of time. If I'm making a card, I might cut out 2 at one time just so I can have it just in case. So this one I have Grateful, and that one's already done. It's ready to go, and I think the colors look pretty good, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and use it. That's a nice little card, so that'll be ready to go for everyone to send that out. And then I can Just choose if I want to add a little bit of bling. I like to do that on the front of the cards just to give them a little bit more interest. So I'm going to go ahead and, these are very tiny little pieces of bling is what I like to call them. So I'm just going to put them along the center strip there. And I'll glue those in place, and then I'll glue the sentiment on the front. And this card will be ready to go. Okay. Nice. Okay, so here's our finished card. I went ahead and put a sentiment on it for grateful, one that I had done before. I had it already done. Okay, and here's all my finished cards for the day. Some of them I left blank so that I can just go ahead and add a sentiment to them as I need them. Okay, so what I like to do here is I like to package my cards. And I do this just for my own purposes. I do this for two reasons. One, I like to always make sure I have an envelope with the card, so that if I need to grab a card, you know, I don't have to go searching for an envelope. And the other reason I like to do this is because I like to make sure, this is just one way to make sure the card is clean and doesn't, you know, get any dust or glitter or anything else that might be found in my craft room. But I like to do this with all my cards, just kind of protects them. And I do keep all the cards in a container, but the container's not covered. So I just feel like this kind of protects them. So there you go. This is what I do when I'm done making my cards for the day. It is a self-sealing bag, but I don't actually seal the bag. The bag is just, you know, for the sake of storing things together and keeping dust away. And so there we go. So I hope this is a useful tip for you. And I do hope you enjoyed watching today. And if you feel like you learned something new, please go ahead and like video. That way YouTube will know that I made a video that people like, and then they make it available for other people to see. So also, if you have a second, go ahead and hit subscribe. It's free, but it does allow you to have access to all the videos I have. Oh, there you go. Look at that. I stamped that one ahead of time. So if you'd like to subscribe, that'd be great. Oh, that's my stamp I put on the back. But yeah, so like and subscribe, and I'm going to be putting out more videos in the future. I have a lot of projects that I've been working on, and I went ahead and recorded them. And so maybe if you like this video, you'll like the next one. So hopefully we'll see you again here soon. Bye.